इसमें प्रोसेसर कौन सा है? That's the question you are most likely to hear when you give someone phone buying advice. Tech enthusiasts nowadays put immense importance on the phone's chipset. In fact, the most affordable smartphone with a certain processor becomes a fan favorite. This brings us onto the curious case of the Snapdragon 8S Gen 3. This is Qualcomm's flagship killer chipset of 2024 and it is powering various smartphones across different price points. Take the three smartphones I have here, the Poco F6, Realme GT and Motorola Edge 50 Ultra. All these phones are positioned in different segments. In fact, the Moto is exactly twice as expensive as the Poco, but they all are still powered by the 8S Gen 3. Now just to be clear, this is not a direct comparison between these three smartphones given their various price points, but we'll try to decode if a chipset really defines a smartphone. We'll start with the Snapdragon 8S Gen 3 because this is more of a 7 series chipset that's trying really hard to fit in the flagship 8 series. In fact, as far as synthetic benchmarks are concerned, it cannot really keep up with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 or even the 8 Gen 2 for that matter. But which out of these three smartphones has the best implementation of the 8S Gen 3? Let's take a look at the benchmarks. The Moto, despite not targeting gamers, surprisingly topped the Antutu charts. On the other hand, the Realme score fell short of expectations for this chipset. However, the Poco F6 emerged victorious in terms of stability. It did not throttle much during the CPU stress test, and its GPU stability score in 3D Mark was equally impressive. Benchmarks aside, the real-world performance of these three smartphones is fast because all of them come with UFS 4.0 storage. However, seasoned mobile gamers need to know this. The 8S Gen 3 handles most games with ease, but it does get warm very quickly. It is important to note that thermal throttling only kicks in when pushing this chip to its limits. A casual 30 to 45 minute session of Call of Duty or BGMI will not trigger throttling on the Poco and Realme. But Motorola's slim design makes it more susceptible to throttling under heavy loads. But other Qualcomm chipsets such as the 8 Gen 3, 8 Gen 2 or even the 7 Plus Gen 3 for that matter do not get warm as quickly as the 8S Gen 3, so that is something you should keep in mind. But since the Poco F6 had the best GPU stability out of this bunch, I would surely lean towards this if mobile gaming is all I want. However, there are more important things to discuss beyond the chipset. So, why is the Edge 50 Ultra so expensive? Well, I'm not justifying this phone's price because it is really more expensive than it should be. But it is also the best built out of this bunch. Its sleek profile, perfectly distributed weight, and that unique wood-inspired back scream premium, and the other two phones simply cannot match it. Do note that this is not real wood, and the other two colors of this phone have a vegan leather back. The Poco F6 definitely feels built to a price because it's all plastic and quite light, but it also feels the most durable due to the same reasons. In fact, it looks quite ready to take on abuse. Then, the Realme GT is a well-built smartphone too, but it could have had a metal frame instead of plastic. Also, I personally am not a fan of this design, especially that shiny band that is impossible to keep smudge-free. Moving on, when it comes to a premium and nag-free software experience, both the Edge 50 Ultra and Realme GT deliver very well. Surprisingly, Realme has finally decided to significantly reduce bloatware on their flagship phone, which is a pleasant change. On the other hand, the Poco, in order to keep costs in check, is full of unwanted pre-installed apps. These can be quite annoying for many users. Both Moto and Realme have embraced generative AI features. The Edge 50 Ultra, for example, comes with an AI wallpaper generator which can create custom wallpapers based on prompts or uploaded photos. The Realme GT on the other hand, boasts a very useful object eraser tool. It is great for post-processing and will make your photos look cleaner. Now, let's talk about the optics because cameras are a big flex on the Edge 50 Ultra. Historically, Motorola phones have had mediocre cameras, but this one is a pleasant surprise. The image processing is saturated but well executed, making the photos stand out. The other two phones just cannot match the Moto's camera quality. In fact, the Realme GT has the tendency to produce washed out photos. The Poco has decent cameras for its price range, but they are definitely not the phone's forte. Until now, the Realme GT has been lagging behind the other two phones in almost every area. But watch the tables turn now. This phone has a 6.78-inch 1.5K curved AMOLED display with a 120Hz refresh rate. It is the only phone in this comparison with an LTPO display, which even the more expensive Moto lacks. Plus, its peak brightness is a staggering 6000 nits and it remains very bright in high brightness mode as well. While both the Moto and Poco have commendable displays, the Realme GT 6 is definitely in a league of its own. Battery life is another crucial factor to consider. Both the Realme and Poco have 5000 mAh batteries. The Realme supports 120 watt fast charging, while the Poco supports 90 watts. Both offer impressive battery life, but the Realme edges out the Poco thanks to its LTPO display, which is more energy efficient. Motorola's obsession with slimness means that the Edge 50 Ultra has a smaller 4500 mAh battery. It provides decent screen time of around 7 hours, but the other two phones outlast it. The Moto does have super fast 125 watts fast charging, and it is the only phone in this bunch with wireless charging support. This is expected given that it is the most expensive option here. So, while the Snapdragon 8s Gen 3 on these three phones is an important factor to consider, you simply cannot judge a phone just based on its chipset. The Poco is tailored for the value-conscious buyer who does not mind a bit of bloatware. The Realme GT 6 tries to balance value and premium features, but it is held back by its mediocre cameras. Then, despite its smaller battery, the Moto Edge 50 Ultra is a fantastic smartphone with premium features and an excellent camera setup. However, Moto's pricing strategy for this smartphone rightfully raises a lot of eyebrows. You see, as good as the Moto is, it is still pricier than the brilliant iQOO 12. In fact, the Ultra launched at 60,000 rupees, but it is already available at a 5,000 rupee discount. I am positive that its price will drop down further very soon. Ultimately, it is important to always consider making informed choices based on your usage patterns and do not overstress on the chipset alone.